long-standing bilateral partnership with Kenya in infrastructure development, trade and investment, the blue economy, and human capital development, just to mention a few. The Prime Minister and I exchanged views on numerous international issues of mutual interest, including those that Kenya, as an African state, especially desires Japan to take up in capacity as the chair of 2023 G7. Foremost among these, I emphasize the need to refocus effective global attention on forgotten conflicts in Africa. I've revisited our agreement with the recent G7 ministerial statement, which noted the urgent need to reinforce peace and security in the Horn of Africa, meet serious humanitarian needs, and build resilience in this region. Furthermore, I raised concern that Kenya, the Horn of Africa region, and other parts of the African continent, as well as the global south, are disproportionately impacted by global climate change and its effects. We are not only affected in actual and potential threats to our environment, but also in regard to our livelihoods and the very existence. I called on Japan and G7 to lend robust support to initiatives aimed at addressing climate change, which include the Africa Climate Summit, which will take place here in Nairobi between September 4th and September 6th this year. Kenya recognizes Japan's exemplary leadership in the climate agenda, starting all the way from Kyoto 25 years ago. Japan's commitment of 6.5 trillion yen to climate finance for developing countries for the 5 years from 2021 to 2025 is commendable. Your Excellency, we do not take for granted Japan's huge investments and support for Kenya's geothermal power development through technology, capacity building, and finance. We share with Japan the conviction that climate emergency requires substantial scaling up of financial flows to developing countries. On Africa, Kenya welcomes Japan's support for the implementation of the Africa Union's Agenda 2063, which is the continent's blueprint for sustainable development and management of strategic partnership. His Excellency and I also discussed the situation in Sudan, and we underscored the need for the international community to support Kenya, IGAD, and the Africa Union in ongoing diplomatic efforts to resolve the conflict. We further agreed to call for a cessation of hostilities immediately without preconditions, assure the safety of civilians, including diplomatic and humanitarian personnel, and allow safe passage of humanitarian assistance and the safe movement of people seeking security. In our deliberations, we agreed to align also the curricula of our two countries so that more Kenyans can access skilled and quality jobs in Japan. We have also agreed on a number of bilateral issues between Kenya and Japan on the exploitation of the geothermal resources in our country. We've also agreed on a couple of other issues on the development of Dongo Kundu, a special economic zone in Mombasa, to expedite the construction and for Japan to support Japanese investors in taking space in the special economic zone. I also undertook that Kenya is going to facilitate investment of Japanese companies and also support Japan to be able to finance Kenya's infrastructure and other developments, including the PPP arrangement around our construction of dams for purposes of harvesting and storage of water, for our irrigation, for our livestock development, and for water for use in our domestic homes. Finally, His Excellency Prime Minister Kishida and I noted the significance of the 60th anniversary of diplomatic relations between Kenya and Japan. In the past 6 decades, the two countries have successfully collaborated on highly impactful undertakings in many sectors. At this critical milestone, we consider the vast scope of current and prospective engagements between Kenya and Japan, and accordingly resolved to pursue resolution of outstanding issues in greater detail. We also committed to a firm and equivocal statement on the aggression by Russia in Ukraine. And as Kenya, we believe in a rules-based international charter. The UN Charter provides a framework for respect of independence, territorial integrity of all countries. We've called for the cessation of the war and revert to dialogue as a mechanism of resolving any disputes. Continued war is denying opportunity for the people in Europe, creating huge roadblock on trade, especially of commodities, to the African continent, creating huge crisis of food and supply of agricultural farm inputs, including fertilizer, to our continent. And we call on the international community to work in concert and to collaborate in bringing the Russia-Ukraine war to an end. I want to thank you very much for listening to me. Mr. Prime Minister, you have the floor.
It is a great pleasure to visit Kenya at this milestone year of the 60th anniversary